Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are this morning's headlines. India promises appropriate response to Pakistan for its invitation to Kashmiri separatists ahead of the NSA-level talks, but says talks will go ahead as planned. Striking FTII students refuse to back down, rule out any compromise on their main demand of removal of Gajendra Chauhan as chairman. Rahul Gandhi gives fresh twist to Prime Minister's Achhe Din slogan, says it's now about silence, suspension and arrests. And India to take on Sri Lanka in the second test in Colombo today. As the visitors look to bounce back, the hosts will hope for a perfect swan song for Sangakkara. Our top focus on the bulletin this morning in what seemed to be a deliberate attempt to provoke India. The Pakistani High Commission has invited Kashmiri separatists for talks with its National Security Advisor Sartaj Aziz in Delhi. India has said that the NSA-level talks will not be called off. However, India has also promised an appropriate response if the meeting takes place. Meanwhile, in a related development, Pakistan also raised the Kashmir issue at the UN Security Council at an open debate. Its permanent representative to the UN, Maliha Lodi, even sought mediation from the world body and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Here's more.
Pakistan testing the Indian government's resolve for an Indo-Pakistan dialogue. Its High Commission in Delhi inviting the Kashmiri separatists for consultations with Sartaj Aziz. Ahead of the National Security Advisor level talks, an action replay of the same events that provoked India to cancel Foreign Secretary level talks with Pakistan last year.
Whenever India has reached out to Pakistan like they have done in UFA, the NSA level talks have been known that there will be NSA level talks. So the Pakistani deep state, and I just won't say that only the army, but there are other elements in the deep state who do not want these talks to succeed. Fortunately, India is still sticking to its stand that the talks will go on, irrespective of the provocations on the line of control. And I think it's the right step because, after all, where would you otherwise talk to Pakistan on terror?
Although angered by the invite, the government said the NSA-level talks between India and Pakistan will take place despite the invitation. News agency PTI also quoted unnamed sources saying that the government will respond appropriately.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी का एक बहुत दिनों से एक पोजीशन रहा है जिसमें हम कहा करते थे कि आतंकवाद और बातचीत दोनों साथ साथ नहीं चल सकते हैं। वर्तमान जो नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एडवाइजर हैं, इनका भी यही मत होता था। प्रधानमंत्री जी ने स्वयं कहा था कि अगर गोलाबारी होती होगी और बंदूक की गोली चलती होगी तो उस आवाज में दूसरी आवाज कैसे सुनाई देगी।
Soon as this government assumed office, we were all told during the election campaign that this is a 15-inch, 6-inch, 56-inch की छाती है, and they will act strongly. But what we are seeing is a complete vacillation and a ding-dong without any perspective on how the Indo-Pak relations have to develop or what is the government's roadmap or a vision.
Questioning Pakistan's commitment to the peace talks, the Congress questioned the Modi government on its policy towards Pakistan and terrorism.
The fundamental question is that why does India want to talk to Pakistan? What do they expect out of the NSA level talks? Does India want sugar from Pakistan? Do they want textiles from Pakistan? Do they want other commodities from Pakistan? And the answer is no. All that we want is that terror should stop. And therefore, after what happened in Gurdaspur, what happened in Udhampur, and the continuous firing across the line of control, as well as the international border, makes out a very strong case for calling off the NSA-level talks.
The Pakistan High Commission extended invitations to chairmen of both factions of the Hurriyat Conference on Tuesday. National Security Advisor A.K. Dawal is slated to meet Aziz in New Delhi for talks on terrorism-related issues for the first time on August 23rd. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat this morning to talk about this is Commodore C. Uday Bhaskar, Director, Society for Policy Studies. Very good morning, Commodore, and thank you for joining me on the program. You know, it clearly looks like there are some elements within Pakistan who are trying to sabotage these NSA-level talks. On one hand, you have, ceasefire violations along the line of control, and on the other hand, you see that separatists have been invited for a meeting with Sartaj Aziz. So clearly, there seems to be some problem there.
Yeah, I think the pattern that we have been witnessing going back to the events that took place in Gurdaspur, Udhampur, and now, of course, the invitation to the Hurriyat to meet with the High Commissioner, I would see the last particularly as being very, very provocative. And in a way, I think pushing New Delhi into a certain corner, if you will, that despite the fact that the Foreign Secretary level talks were called off last year for the same reason, because the Pakistani High Commissioner had met with the Hurriyat. I would qualify this as provocative, and I think New Delhi should take a very calibrated decision about staying the course as far as the talks on terror are concerned, and concurrently outlining how far it is willing to, quote-unquote, indulge this so-called engagement with the Hurriyat.
You know, what is it that we're going to achieve from these NSA-level talks? What's going to be high on the agenda apart from terror? Of course, terror is going to be high on the agenda, but what is it that we're going to come out to as far as these talks are concerned?
Well, I think, you know, there was a certain sense of clarity post-UFA when Prime Minister Modi met with his counterpart from Pakistan, Mr. Nawaz Sharif, that there would be a focus on terrorism, and concurrently there was supposed to be a procedure for the DGMOs at the level of the army to meet, and within the paramilitary and the BSF, that the Rangers on the Pakistani side and the BSF on the Indian side, so that the kind of tension and the exchange of ordnance that we have seen across the line of control as also the IB would have a procedure, meaning that if there is a certain intensification of the exchange of fire, we have a procedure for firefighting so that the civilian population is not affected. I think that is a responsibility, and I would have seen that as a desirable framework in which India should engage with Pakistan, and also convey what I would call is that there is a determination on the Indian side also to talk to Pakistan and in many ways bring it back to the January 2004 agreement that was signed when we had Prime Minister Vajpayee at the helm here and General Musharraf there. So I think, you know, Frank, this need to engage with Pakistan should be seen as part of a diplomatic cum political process in which India should be invested. But at the same time, we can draw our own internal red lines, and the Hurriyat is definitely a test, I think, about whether or not India should allow this. And there are various ways, I think, in which India can frankly put the onus back on Islamabad. So I personally would say that the UFA spirit or the need to engage with Pakistan is valid. How we go about it is really a question of the tactics that India is going to currently deploy, given the provocation that is so visible from the Pakistani side.
You know, time and again, the question or the issue always comes up, of course, is that, you know, engaging with Pakistan is fine, but the problem really is there are certain elements within Pakistan who are the ones who actually carry out attacks in India and who do not want the peace process to go on. So should India also consider maybe engaging with the Pakistani army and take it to a level further?
Well, I think at this point, India is committed to engaging with the democratic representatives in Pakistan, which is Mr. Nawaz Sharif. Now, this is par for the course. I think the entire global community that is looking at Pakistan are agreed that there is an equivalent of power sharing. Not that it is voluntary, but Islamabad represents one faction, the elected representative. Rawalpindi represents the army headquarters. And Muridke represents the equivalent of the non-state entities who are aligned to the deep state, whether it is the Lashkar-e-Taiba or the Jaish or any other groups that are also now operating in Afghanistan. This is a reality. I think India should not only engage with Pakistan at the political democratic level, let the onus be on Mr. Nawaz Sharif. If he wants to consult his own army, which seems to be the case. I mean, there is reference that there was a meeting in Pakistan on Tuesday where General Sharif met with Prime Minister Sharif, and
Indeed.
maybe they've set the agenda for the NSA level talks. But one point, Frank, where I think perhaps India needs to do more is to be able to get its own story across.
Sure.
Because at the moment, I think there is a larger regional and global perception, which Pakistan has been very good and adept at, to project itself as, again, quote unquote, the victim of an overbearing India. And they use the same card of terrorism, suggesting that India has been abetting or supporting the same groups, whether it's in Balochistan or
Right.
other parts of Pakistan. I personally think India needs to invest in strategic communication, win the story as to the perfidy that Pakistan has engaged in, whether it is Bin Laden, whether it is Mullah Omar,
Right.
or whether it is the way in which Pakistan has invested in terror, both against India and against Afghanistan in this case. So this is where I think India needs to be cognizant
Right.
that today the global perception is either neutral or in some capitals of the world more sympathetic to Pakistan, as we have seen, whether it is China in the United Nations Security
Right.
Council.
Commodore, we'll have
some
to leave it at that,
parts in the
unfortunately,
United
because we're completely running out of time. I thank you for joining us on the program and putting things into perspective for us as far as the NSA level talks between India and Pakistan are concerned. Moving on now, of course, despite their post-midnight arrests, the striking students of FTII have ruled out any compromise on their main demand of removal of TV actor and BJP member Gajendra Chauhan as chairman of the institute. Addressing a press conference after they were released on bail, the students also said that instead of asking them to back down, the INB ministry should dilute its hard posture on the controversial appointment. On the dramatic midnight swoop, the students said that it was criminalization by the FTII administration, which had lost all credibility. Meanwhile, the government has formed a 3-member team headed by the Registrar of Newspapers in India, SM Khan, to assess the ground situation in FTII and end the impasse.
Any such meeting where the ministry officials would discuss the strike is a critical meeting, and we definitely are going to be a part of that meeting. If at all there has to be some dilution of the issue, the dilution should happen from the ministry's end, where they should dilute Mr. Gajendra Chauhan into some kind of liquid and evaporate him out of this society.
The police had asked for a police custody on certain grounds. So those grounds were not legal. So we had pointed out those grounds that they are not legal, and the court has rejected that particular request of the prosecution and granted bail.
Moving on now, Rahul Gandhi was on a 2-day visit to his constituency Amethi, where he used every opportunity to hit out at Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Giving a fresh twist to the Prime Minister's Achhe Din slogan, Rahul said that it now included silence, suspension and arrests. He was referring to the Prime Minister's silence in Parliament despite the opposition uproar, the suspension of his party's MPs and the midnight arrest of students at FTII.
पार्लियामेंट में इन्होंने विपक्ष को दबाने की कोशिश की। इन्हें लगा कि ये देखो 40-45 लोग हैं, इनको दबा देंगे, और हम नहीं दबे। और जब हम नहीं दबे, वो उल्टा घूम के भाग गए। और आप देखना, वही आरोपी में होगा, ये प्रेशर में आके कोलैप्स करेंगे, और वही एफटीआईआई में होगा, ये प्रेशर में आके कोलैप्स करेंगे।
Well, it's the time for political realignments in poll-bound Bihar. In the latest, 4 rebel JDO MLAs joined the BJP yesterday. Flanked by a union minister and the BJP's Bihar chief, the 4 MLAs claimed that they were disillusioned with the chief minister after he forged ties with the RJD chief Lalu Prasad. They also claimed that Nitish Kumar had no respect for party workers. The 4 MLAs are Gyanendra Singh Gyanu, Rajeshwar Raj, Dinesh Prasad and Suresh Chanchal. The first signs of their disillusionment with the JDU leadership was seen during the Rajya Sabha elections earlier this year, when they sided with the BJP to vote for independent candidate Sabir Ali. They also supported then Chief Minister Jitan Ram Manjhi, who was resisting Nitish's bid to remove him from the post. Well, let's look at the other national news in our segment Nationwide. The Reserve Bank of India has granted 11 payment bank licenses to a group of promoters. The RBI has handpicked top conglomerates including Reliance Industries, Aditya Birla Group, Airtel and Vodafone along with the Department of Posts. Payment banks can accept deposits up to 1 lakh rupees only and cannot grant loans. The money will be deposited as government bonds and they can issue debit cards but not credit cards. Other than these, they can provide all the services of a regular bank. Suspended Gujarat police officer Sanjeev Bhatt, who took on then Chief Minister Narendra Modi over the 2002 riots cases, has been sacked by the state government. The Gujarat government sacked him on grounds of unauthorized absence from service. Bhatt had alleged in an affidavit in the Supreme Court that Narendra Modi instructed top police officers to allow the Hindus to vent out their anger during the riots. The Class 10 board examination for students of CBSE schools could become mandatory just a few years after it was made optional under the Right to Education Act. HRD Minister Smriti Irani said that there was unanimous cry from every state asking the centre to revoke the no-fail policy as well as to bring the Class 10 board examinations back. 1984 batch IPS officer Karnal Singh has been given additional charge of the post of Enforcement Director for a period of 3 months. Karnal Singh is currently working as Special Director Centre Region in ED. The order comes on the heels of the BJP leader Subramanian Swamy's letter to the Prime Minister complaining that the agency had not properly investigated the National Herald issue. Moving on now, it's the former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's 71st birth anniversary today. Tributes were paid at his memorial Veer Bhumi in the national capital. Besides his widow, Congress President Sonia Gandhi and children Rahul and Priyanka Gandhi, several other dignitaries also paid their respects to the youngest Prime Minister of India. Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari, President Pranab Mukherjee and several Congress leaders were present at the site. Rajiv Gandhi took office after the assassination of his mother Indira Gandhi in 1984 and served as Prime Minister till 1989. He was assassinated by the LTTE cadres at an election rally in Sri Perumbudur in Tamil Nadu. The leader's death anniversary is also observed as Anti-Terrorism Day. Well, the 10-day Onam festivities kicked off in Kerala yesterday with the flag hoisting in Kochi. Governor P. Sathasivam inaugurated the festivities at a function before the start of a colourful procession. The festivities will end with the Onam Day, the 10th day that falls on August 28th this year. Let's take a look now at these visuals as we take a break.
Get live Rajya Sabha session, news, views, reports and analysis you can trust on social media. Subscribe, follow, like Rajya Sabha Television.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, after an unexpected drubbing in the first test, India will look to bounce back when they take on host Sri Lanka in the second test in Colombo today. The visitors had lost the first test by 63 runs after a batting collapse in the second innings. Sri Lanka is all geared up for the perfect swan song for former captain Kumar Sangakkara.
Team India will look for a turnaround in the second test against Sri Lanka. Despite dominating most parts of the first test, a batting collapse saw the visitors fall short of a moderate target to win the first test. Forms of key top-order batsmen have been a bit of worry for the team.
I think it's me getting 4 centuries in 4 games is irrelevant to me becoming captain. I think I've always had that sort of mindset and hunger to go out there and score runs.
The opening slot remains a suspect too. Murli Vijay is likely to return, but he will not have the centurion in the first test, Shikhar Dhawan, as his partner. Dhawan has been ruled out for the rest of the test series due to injury. All-rounder Roger Binny could also be included in to give the team the right balance. Host Sri Lanka, on the other hand, will look for the perfect farewell to legendary batsman Kumar Sangakkara with the series win in Colombo.
It's going to be a emotional game for all of us. A great servant of Sri Lanka cricket, a great servant for the team, a great human being. I'm going to say goodbye to the team.
Sangakkara has scored 12,350 runs in 133 tests at an average of 57.71, currently the best among the active players. Having got out cheaply in the first test, Sangakkara will look for a fairy tale finish to his career. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, indeed, of course, it is going to be the final test as far as Kumar Sangakkara is concerned. He scored over 12,000 runs in an illustrious career, and it will be his last test that he will play, of course. It begins today in Colombo. It will go on for a few days, and India will be looking to bounce back after that shocking defeat there in the first test at the hands of the host Sri Lanka, where India lost by 63 runs after a target of 183 was set by the Sri Lankans. It was an immense batting collapse that we saw on the 4th day of that test, where India lost a match that they could have gone on to win. Joining me on the phone line is Shekhar Luthra, sports editor of the DNA. Shekhar, it was an incredible loss at the hands of the hosts in the first test match. Several questions were raised about the team selection in that particular match and also the role of Shastri. Is anything going to change as far as the second test is concerned? Are we going to see a different unit?
Well, Ravi Shastri is doing exactly what his master has been telling. So I have no comments for Ravi Shastri or for all those people, who are on the payrolls of BCCI and then trying to, justify their role. But anyway, for Team India, I think it was an incredible loss. There is no doubt that, they lost very badly and they could not even chase 176, which was as good or as bad was, our experience in Barbados, 1997.
Indeed.
But yes, there are question marks over the selection, but then you have to blame all these selectors whom you are paying so hefty fees. And then the theory of 5 bowlers, which probably, I also want India team to go ahead with 5 bowlers, but again, is that 5th bowler is Harbhajan Singh, who has nothing to offer for his selection, who has been a failure when he was dropped and now he has been brought back for what? I don't understand. But yes, now Binny has been roped in again for another quota. Whether Kohli is going to drop Harbhajan is a big question, because he was the one who has been backing Harbhajan for other reasons, for more than any performance based or anything else.
Indeed, and yes. A quick word, Shekhar, a quick word on Kumar Sangakkara. It's going to be his last test today. Curtains will be drawn on an illustrious career.
I think the best comment I think was from Mahela Jayawardene, that he changed the whole perception of the game in Sri Lanka. He was probably as good as Sir Don Bradman or Sachin Tendulkar. I would say yes. Look at his performances overseas, in England, in Australia. I think better than any of the subcontinent batsmen, whether it was Gavaskar or anybody else. So in a way, I think he was the best batsman there, far era, and I would say it would be a fitting tribute if they could win the series in this particular series also.
All right, Shekhar Luthra, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us on the phone line there with all those details. Moving on now, South Africa's Justice Minister has blocked the early release of athlete Oscar Pistorius from prison. Pistorius was to be released on Friday. The former Paralympic gold medalist had been expected to be released after serving 10 months of a 5-year sentence. He is lodged in jail for killing his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp on Valentine's Day of 2013. Pistorius was due to be transferred from prison to house arrest on Friday and was expected to stay at his uncle's 3-story mansion in Pretoria. Under South African law, Pistorius was eligible for release under correctional supervision, having served a sixth of his sentence. But Pretoria's Justice Minister Michael Masunta said that the decision by the parole board to free the athlete was premature and without legal basis.
It is not conceivable that the parole board could have lawfully considered his application for parole before the lapse of that minimum period. And on that basis, I decided to refer the matter for review as provided in the Act with the National Council of Correctional Services.
Well, let's now take a look at some more overnight sports news in our sports beat. Hashim Amla's century helped South Africa beat New Zealand by 20 runs in the first match of the 3-match ODI series. Amla's 124 and Riley Russo's 89 helped South Africa score 304 for the loss of 7 wickets after being sent into bat first. In reply, the Kiwis were bowled out for 284. Amla was declared the man of the match. England pace bowler James Anderson will miss the 5th Ashes Test at the Oval after failing to recover from a side strain. Anderson sustained the injury during England's win in the 3rd Test at Edgbaston. He will be replaced by Mark Wood, who will join Stuart Broad and Steve Finn in the pace attack. England lead the 5-match series 3-1 and have already regained the Ashes. World number 5, Stan Wawrinka defeated Croatia's Borna Korčić 3-6, 7-6, 6-3 at the Cincinnati Open on Wednesday. The Swiss got off to a slow start against the Croatian but rebounded to defeat the 18-year-old Korčić. The 2-time major champion will now look to defeat Croatian Ivo Karlovic to advance into the quarterfinals for the 3rd time in 4 years at the same event. Football club Chelsea has agreed a deal with Barcelona to sign winger Pedro for a fee of £21 million. Pedro has scored 99 goals in 326 appearances since his debut in 2008. He will be Chelsea's second signing in less than a week after the arrival of Ghana defender Baba Rahman. Going on to some international news now. In a brutal incident, the Islamic State militants beheaded a renowned antiquities scholar Khalid al-Assad in the ancient Syrian city of Palmyra. His body was later hung from a Roman column. Assad had apparently refused to reveal the place where valuable artifacts had been moved for safekeeping. Assad was in charge of Palmyra's archaeological site for 4 decades until 2003. Islamic State had taken over the ancient city of Palmyra early in May and have destroyed its monumental Roman-era ruins. The Islamic State views artifacts as idolatrous and under their puritanical interpretation of Islam.
شخصية استثنائية فزة في زمن نحن بأمس الحاجة إلى تلك الشخصيات لخدمة التراث الثقافي السوري الذي يعاني الآن من الدمار نتيجة الحرب ونتيجة سرقة الآثار.
Some more international news in our World Wrap. A UN report suggests that the months-long conflict in Yemen has pushed the country to the brink of famine. The head of the UN's World Food Programme says that markets in the country do not have enough food to feed the population. Ongoing violence has stopped aid agencies from reaching the needy. The UN said that nearly 13 million people urgently require help. UN peacekeepers working in the Central African Republic have been accused of rape. Families of 3 females, including a minor, have reported abuse to the UN mission. The fresh allegations come just a week after the head of the UN mission in CAR was fired over previous sex abuse accusations. This is the 14th allegations of possible sexual exploitation and abuse against the peacekeepers since the mission was established in April 2014. At least 8 Turkish soldiers were killed as a roadside bomb went off as fighting between Kurdish forces and the military rages on. In another incident, 2 gunmen were arrested near Istanbul after gunfire erupted close to the police post. Well, that's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Have a nice day.